Hey guys.
Hey everybody.
Welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor weekly video. Tonight we're going to be talking about vacationing during COVID, some of what's happened for us and our plans for the future. Obviously our lives pretty much revolve around travel and has for the last 5 years, so this whole situation has been very interesting to try to navigate, but we'll talk about our plans, the road trip that we have coming up, and how we plan to try to kind of still be responsible even while still trying to take advantage of traveling a little bit. So Whitney's going to introduce us, and I'm going to get this video shared in a couple different groups.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining. My name is Whitney Aiken.
And I'm Jared Cazazzo.
And we are both traveling doctors of physical therapy. We've been traveling physical therapists for about 5 years now. And as many of you guys may know from following our videos in the past, we travel for work within the US. We take travel contracts around the country. So far we've only worked in the East Coast, but then we, in the past couple of years, have been taking off a significant amount of time between jobs to travel for fun. So in the past couple of years, we've taken some really long international trips just for leisure. And as Jared mentioned, that kind of all got messed up this year with COVID. We were supposed to be traveling in Latin America, all through Central, South America, and Mexico from March through August. So we had to completely cancel that. So our whole 2020 has just been turned upside down from what we thought it was going to be. So as Jared mentioned, in tonight's video, we're going to kind of talk about what our new plans are and kind of what our life is going to look like going forward. And we'd love any feedback from you guys who are watching live, or if you watch later on the replay, we'd love for you to leave us a comment and let us know how your year has been affected in terms of travel, if you've changed your plans because of COVID. Are you making new plans? Are you just sort of waiting and seeing? We'd love to hear from you and what you think, and then we'll give you as much insight as we can as well. We also have another quick announcement for those that are watching. In addition to our weekly Sunday videos and podcasts, we're also doing a mini series during the 6-week period called Travel Therapy 101. So you guys may have seen the past 2 weeks, we put out some articles and videos on kind of the basics of travel therapy. So week 1, we did what is travel therapy and how does it work. Week 2, we just did pay, and then this coming week we'll be doing housing. So if you're new to travel therapy and a lot of the topics that we talk about on our Sunday videos might be, not exactly the type of content you're looking for, you kind of want to go back to the basics, this 6-week series is for you. Yep. So you can check that out on our website at traveltherapymentor.com, on our YouTube page, and our podcast.
Yep, so like Whitney said, we canceled our trip. We were supposed to be traveling until mid-August. So from the beginning or middle of March until August, we were supposed to be out of the country in Central and South America. We've canceled all that. We held out a little bit of hope that we'd be able to pick back up on that trip, July, at least through the last month or so. And obviously that has not worked out. So then we were thinking about even possibly, if that didn't work out, maybe going to Europe. Well, obviously that is also not going to work out now. I don't even think Americans can go to Europe for the foreseeable future. So now we're kind of changing gears and planning on doing a lot more domestic travel. And luckily our country is massive and there's a lot to see that we haven't seen yet. So we should still be able to come up with a pretty decent trip. Try to avoid some cities, try to go hiking and see some amazing places in nature. And I think that's much more conducive to the environment right now.
Yeah, COVID has really just turned our plans upside down. We ended up this past 5 months, instead of being in Latin America, we ended up staying home in Roanoke, Virginia. This is the longest time we've spent home in a long time. We actually ended up buying a house, which many of you guys may know if you've watched our videos and stuff before. So we've just kind of switched gears, been doing different things, but we are itching to get out and travel some more. And we're really not sure kind of what later this year is going to hold, but we had already planned on doing a road trip within the US. We did one in 2019. Last year we made a road trip out of TravCon, which is the travelers conference that they have every year in Las Vegas. So we figured we were going to be going to that anyway. Why not drive across the country? Because we'd never been across the country. So last year we went right through the middle of the country. We went just right through the Midwest, kind of all the way out to Colorado, Utah, then cut down to Vegas, and then we came back sort of in a little bit of the southern US, but still kind of in the Midwest. And that was just incredible.
Yeah, that was a 3-week trip. And before that, we'd just gotten back from a 4-month trip in Europe. And honestly, I think that 3-week road trip was probably cooler than our whole trip in Europe, which sounds crazy. but just being able to see so much amazing stuff out in Colorado and Utah and Nevada, and there's a lot of awesome places in the country.
Yeah, so we were already so excited this year when we were going to be getting back from Latin America in August. We were planning on taking another road trip out to Vegas for TravCon and doing a different route. Well, recently we found out that TravCon was going to be canceled this year, so they're no longer having the Travelers Conference in Vegas this year for obvious reasons. So we said, okay, well that's fine. We'll still, try to do our road trip. So up until this point, like Jared said, we actually still had our last 2 weeks of our Latin America trip booked. It was the last little bit was in Mexico City and Cancun. So we kind of thought, well, maybe come August, like we could still go to Mexico City, go to Cancun, and then come back and go on the road trip. Well, recently we kind of started having second thoughts about Mexico. We just weren't really sure if it was right to be flying, to be going to another country right now, even though we have known people that have gone to Mexico and it's been okay. We just weren't really sure. And the other thing was we would literally get right back off the plane and be hitting the road trip. And we just really didn't feel great about going out of the country and then coming back and not quarantining ourselves and then going out on our road trip and potentially exposing other people. So at the last minute, we basically decided we're just going to cancel all of the Mexico part of the trip. So that completely wipes out our whole Latin America trip that we had hopes for. And we figure we can do Mexico, Cancun another time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we already have that outline that we booked this last trip. We had it all planned out. So hopefully in the future, maybe next year or the year after, we can use that same outline and hopefully kind of rebook the same trip. And maybe it won't take as much research this time, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so right now I think our immediate plans are to try to avoid any kind of travel that involves flying, and we're going to instead shift our focus to some domestic travel that involves more driving, something we have a little more control over. And because we canceled the Mexico part of our trip, we're actually able to leave a little earlier on our road trip, and we're planning on dedicating about 8 weeks to it. So it's a little bit longer than what we had before, so we're hoping to pack even more fun into it around the U.S.
Yep, and something else we're going to try on this road trip, which will be pretty exciting, I think. This is something I've kind of wanted to do for a couple years now, and I've been trying to convince Whitney to try it, but now it makes more sense than ever. We're going to buy a minivan and try to sort of outfit it as like a camper van. Obviously, it's going to be very makeshift, and we're not going to be spending the entire time in it, but if we can camp for a couple nights at a time, like inside national parks in the van, one, that will give us less exposure to people, and two, that'll save us some money. And I think it'll be a fun experience. So we're going to try to find between now and when we leave in the beginning of August, a minivan, build a platform in there to put a bed and store some stuff underneath, and maybe stay in that at least a couple nights at a time.
Yeah, I've come around a lot to this idea, and a lot of you guys may recall a few weeks ago we did a video talking about van life and kind of like long-term living in a van, and how we didn't really feel like that was the most feasible option for travel therapists, but we did talk about how we could see the perks of it for just short-term kind of road trip life. And we're not really big campers. We don't have a lot of experience with camping. I'm not too keen on sleeping in the outdoors, so we're going to do it a little bit, and we're just going to see how it goes, but we definitely plan on doing some nights in the van and then some nights at like an Airbnb or a hotel.
Yeah, we really have no idea how this will work out. It could be awful and we could hate it, or maybe it'll be better than we think. But yeah, either way, it'll be an adventure. We've done a lot of crazy things, so hopefully we can make this work.
Real quick, I see some of you guys are tuning in live with us tonight. We really appreciate that. Hey, Lauren. Hey, George. Thank you guys for tuning in. If anybody else is watching live, we'd love if you'd leave us a comment. And if you're just tuning in, if you want to tell us about your travel plans for the year, did you have some vacations that were canceled that you had to change? And what's your whole mindset and outlook on traveling in 2020? We'd love to hear from you, and we'll go through some comments at the end. Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining. And also, if you guys are getting any value out of this video on whatever platform you're tuning in on, we would love for you to like the video and just leave us a comment and let us know that you watched. We appreciate your support. So kind of with the road trip, our plan right now, we're planning on setting out around the first week of August and then probably coming back the first week of October. But our dates are a little bit flexible, fortunately, so kind of plus or minus 8 weeks. And many of you guys may have seen that we put out a rough draft of our route a few days ago, earlier last week, and we got a lot of feedback. We really appreciate all the feedback, but it's very clear, like whenever we ask for feedback for our road trips, a lot of people just are really set in their opinions. Like, you get the opinion, the group of people who are like, oh my gosh, you're trying to see way too much in 8 weeks. Like, you could spend 8 weeks just in California. Why are you cramming in so much? You're not going to have fun. And then you get this other group of people that are kind of like, oh, well, why are you skipping this, and this? And you definitely need to stop in this, and you have to do this. And we're like, we have to just do what we can do in 8 weeks. And after getting a lot of y'all's feedback, we are going to tailor our road trip route a little bit based on some stuff that we learned.
Yeah, and really every one of our trips has been like this. The trip that we planned in Asia and Europe back in 2018, people were saying that we were going to way too many countries in a 5-month span. And the Europe trip, people were saying we were going way too many countries in a 4-month span. So we always try to cram a lot in for the most part, and that's usually just due to limited time. We want to see as much as we can over the next couple of years, and we can always go back to places if we really like them, but just being able to see things once, see what we like, I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, we've kind of always had this mentality of like, let's just see as many states as we can, as many countries as we can. We've been to over 30 countries. We've been to over 30 of the U.S. states. The plan after this trip is all said and done is we probably will have been to about 46 of the 50 states. So, we're still young. We've got a lot of traveling ahead of us, but we figure right now we just want to see a lot, before we have kids. And then later, if we want to spend a whole week in one city or a whole week to dedicate to one national park or one country, we'll have more time later to go back to those places we really liked. But right now, we just want to check off and see as much as we can.
Yeah, and I get very overzealous sometimes with planning these trips. And usually Whitney already has to rein me in a little bit before we ever even post an itinerary of any sort. But so when we started this, I wanted to try to make it to all the national parks in the lower 48. And we only have about 8 weeks, and it became pretty evident that there was no real way to do that. We've already been to several of them, so we didn't have to go to all of them. Mm-hmm. But even so, it would have been somewhere around 16 or 17,000 miles in 8 weeks, which is a ton. So we decided to back that down a little bit, and even so, we were still trying to make it to 31 national parks, and it was going to be about 13,000 miles of driving. Mm-hmm. And I think now we're probably even going to go a little bit less than that, just because, we don't want to be rushed. We don't want to feel, anxious about getting to the next place, and be able to enjoy each area a little bit more.
Yeah. When we, if you guys looked at our map earlier this week, it was just going to be going counterclockwise around the whole country. So we were going to start in Virginia, skip New England because we've already been through New England. A lot of people were mad about like, why are you not going to New England? We're like, we've been all over New England. So go straight from Virginia up through like Ohio, then up through Michigan to the Upper Peninsula, and then cut across the way northern route. And go to a lot of the national parks up in the northern route, kind of down through Wyoming, and then back over to the West Coast, come straight down the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, then come up from Southern California through Vegas, and then go back down through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, so forth and so on. And we were even going to go all the way down through Alabama, Louisiana, down into Florida and do the Florida national parks. Now, since we posted that route, we've actually kind of looked at a few things, and I think we decided that we're probably going to cut out the southeast corner. We're going to cut out Florida and all that because, one, we've both been to the state of Florida before.
Several times.
Two, we feel like we can probably plan that as a separate trip where we would go down to Key West, Miami, do all 3 national parks, the Everglades, the Dry Tortugas, and what's the other one? Biscayne, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Because they're kind of right down there in that Miami, Key West area, and we could just do that as a separate trip and not make it so rushed. And maybe right now isn't a great time with COVID to be in southern Florida at the beaches and everything. So I think we're going to skip that southeast corner, and that'll give us a little more time out west because there's obviously so much to see in California and Washington and Oregon. And those places are harder to get to for us since we're from the East Coast. So we're definitely going to tailor our itinerary a little bit. We got a lot of great suggestions from you guys for other stuff that's like in Michigan and up north and on the West Coast that are not national parks, because we kind of just have like national park, national park, national park, national park. But I realize there's so much more to see. Even if it's not considered a national park, there's still like other great outdoor things. So we might try to incorporate some of those.
Yeah.
But again, kind of like we said, like a big focus is more the outdoor stuff.
Something else we also realized after we posted that itinerary, we kind of planned this outline, but we haven't done a lot of research on individual parks, but a lot of you guys have been to each of those individual parks. and some have been there recently. And what we learned is that who knows what the case will be in a couple months from now. Hopefully things will be better, but some national parks are closed or thinking about closing or just opening. So it's hard to say what's going to happen with all of the parks we had planned. And there's a chance that maybe we won't make it to all of those. So this is going to be by far our most flexible trip ever. And I think that is also a good reason to try to do this van thing, at least part of the time, is if something doesn't work out, at least we'll have somewhere that we could, stay overnight and then try to figure something else out the next time. So we probably are not going to book anything ahead of time, except for the national parks that you have to book ahead of time. We found that several of those, you do have to tell them what date you're going to be there. So we'll probably book those ahead of time, but besides that, we're not booking any places to stay or anything like that so that we can be as flexible as possible.
Yeah, and that's completely different. If you guys have followed along with any of our international trips or road trips in the past, we usually like to have everything mapped out. We would always try to book, if there was a flight involved, we would have that booked. If there was a hotel or an Airbnb involved, we would have it planned out. And so this year in 2020, with traveling, with vacationing in general, as you guys can see, I think flexibility is the most important thing, because nobody knows if suddenly in 3 weeks, this area is going to be a hot spot or this is going to be closed and you can't go there anymore. Like, we had New Mexico on our route, and there's a couple of national parks in New Mexico we wanted to go to. And then suddenly somebody says on our post, like, oh, did you know you have to quarantine for 2 weeks to go to Mexico? And we're like, okay. I mean, New Mexico, the state, if you're coming from out of state. And we were like, okay, well then if that's still the case, then New Mexico is just completely out. So we have to really just be flexible and be willing to change our plans as they go on this road trip, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, this is the longest we've been in one place for at least 5 years now. We've been in our hometown since February, and so we are just kind of itching to get out and do something. So yeah, even if things don't go exactly according to plan or we need to adjust things, then that's fine. We just really want to get out and see something right now. And we'll see how the rest of the year goes after that.
I'm sure that a lot of you guys can relate. Definitely let us know in the comments if you're feeling that way, if you're itching to get out and travel, because I know there's so many of you out there that, have probably had to cancel vacations that you had, to Europe, to tropical islands, to different places. Weddings have had to be canceled, vacations have had to be canceled. So I know you guys are feeling that too. But we definitely recognize, we still need to be responsible even if we're not flying, even if we are just traveling within the US, which is why a big focus of this is just going to be more hiking, more outdoor stuff, trying to keep to ourselves. We're going to maintain the guidelines that are in place. We've basically been told that a lot of the national parks are limiting the number of people that can enter at one time to avoid overcrowding. They are requiring masks in some of the heavier trafficked areas, like right at the entrances and that sort of thing. So we'll keep our masks close by, try to stay away from others on the trail when we can. And like Jared said, kind of the van camping, that'll keep us away from people some of the time. We are going to do some Airbnbs and hotels, and we'll do our best to be socially distant where we're able to there. And the other thing is we're just going to kind of avoid some of the bigger cities.
For sure.
A lot of the times when we go to cities anyway, we like to travel really frugally. So a lot of times when we go to cities, it's more just sightseeing, either on foot or in the car, just to say we've seen things. We do drive-bys at places and say, wow, look at that, look at that, look at that, So we wouldn't necessarily be the type of people to be going to the bars and the restaurants and the museums anyway. And so this year we're for sure not really going to go in the cities to go to those attractions. We might just get some takeout food, go sit outside at a picnic table somewhere, and just kind of drive through. Yeah,
we definitely are not big crowd people. Obviously, we go to a lot of the major cities across the world when we're traveling, but that's just because that's where a lot of the attractions are. But in the U.S., we can easily avoid that and see a lot of the other amazing stuff, and we are completely fine with that.
And the other thing is, when you're doing U.S. travel, you have so much more control because you have your own vehicle. So we're not having to use public transit and all that like we would be if we were traveling in another country. That would just be totally out of the question for us right now. I don't want to get on the subway and bus systems and all that stuff with people and share their germs and share my germs. We're so happy to just, in the US, you can have your own car, you can drive yourself, you can keep to yourself. So that's definitely our shift in mindset of traveling this year. And, for you guys that are watching and are wondering kind of what you should do, I think that's a really good idea is try to keep to yourself as much as possible. We've definitely heard from a lot of folks who we've asked that are saying the same thing, that they're focusing on more traveling within their state, places they can drive to, hikes, outdoorsy type of things this year. There's still lots to see, even if we all can't travel out of the country right now.
Yep. If you guys have any suggestions, we've already gotten a lot of great feedback, but about the national parks we're going to, or other things we should see along the way, like we were talking about, we're very flexible. We can change things. So if you have any recommendations or just insight into like the parks themselves, like we learned that you have to book Yosemite, like we're probably gonna have to book it a month and a half in advance. We had no idea about that. So probably very soon we're gonna have to book that.
Yeah.
And any little insight like that is very helpful.
Yeah, we love that we have a lot of people that we can crowdsource from that live in different parts of the country. So if you get a chance, take a look at the itinerary that we laid out. It's on our blog, our fifthwheelpt.com blog, and I posted a picture of it on our social media pages too. So let us know if you have any feedback about our route, about the parks that we're going to, if you have any suggestions for day hikes. Even if we do add a little bit more time to each national park, it'll probably still just be a day or a day and a half at each place. So we're not going to be doing any major, really long hikes, probably the shorter day hikes, more bang for your buck type thing. Like what is like the one thing in the park we have to see if we're only going to be there for a day and a half.
Pretty much 10 miles or less. That'll probably be the limit.
Yeah, and we learned last year, like our hiking and cardio experience on the East Coast is completely different than when you get out west and you get into that altitude and the really huge altitude change, or the elevation changes there. Yeah, we got screwed.
Shout out to the incline in Colorado for teaching us
Colorado
that.
Springs, yeah, we had a tough time. That was really humbling. So I don't think we'll be tackling any major like ultra marathon hikes or backpacking overnight hikes, but your day trip hikes, please let us know. And again, if anybody has van camped before or car camped, if you have any little suggestions, I don't think we're gonna like camp, to be honest. Like I don't think we're gonna buy a camping stove and be out making fires and stuff like that. Like I think we're just gonna literally sleep in the car and like live on protein bars. But just little stuff, like we've
only for a day or two at a time.
Right, like we're not like real campers.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of our family probably thinks we're crazy. Like, oh my God, you guys are so adventurous, and I'm like, no, we're not. No. Like we know so many of you guys that are way more adventurous than we are. We're not that adventurous.
Yep.
But any little tips or tricks you have, I know weather is like for sure a factor, which is why we're going north first and then coming south. Jared's the mastermind behind that. I probably wouldn't have even thought of that. I was like, I guess August in Texas, not a great idea.
Being in the north in August should be okay. Some of these national parks I saw get down, I mean, usually they're higher elevation anyway, so they're not too hot at night, and that's probably the biggest concern for me at least, is if it's too hot, I just cannot sleep. So we don't want to be, if it's going to be really hot, we're not going to be in the van anyway.
Yeah. But if you have any tips or tricks, and if you guys, as we kind of tailor our route a little bit more, we'll probably have a better idea of like the date range that we'll be driving through certain places. So we'll post an updated itinerary. And if any of you guys are along our route and would like to meet up, we would love to see you. If you're comfortable with that, we could do something outdoors. We could meet up for a hike or
at the national park. That would be awesome.
Yeah, meet up at the national parks, or do an outside brewery or winery or picnic or something. So just let us know if you'd like to meet up, or if you're going to be along our route. We would love to hear from you. And again, if you guys are watching, we're going to wrap up. We're going to take some comments here. If you have any suggestions for us, or if you want to tell us about your story, kind of how has your life changed in 2020 in terms of your vacationing and your travels, let us know, and I'll go through a few of the comments here.
And if you're listening to this on the podcast later, we're uploading all these videos in audio format to the podcast. Please subscribe, and I don't think you can like podcasts, can you? But subscribe.
Okay, Melanie says, I'm still traveling throughout Arizona and Colorado. She says she's mostly tent and car camping. I think that's a great idea, Melanie. I hope you're still enjoying your summer.
How's it been?
Yeah,
I guess right now it's pretty hot, but...
Hi, Julie. Thank you for joining. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Cheryl. Melanie also says, I use Campendium app for free camping sites and BLM Land on my 3-month road trip last year. I camped most of the time.
Awesome.
I think I've heard of that app. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate your insight. So Andrea says she had to cancel her trip to Mexico in April, and then she had a graduation trip planned for Thailand and South Korea in August. I'm so sorry. She says she's praying that her Colombia trip in December can still happen.
Yeah, hopefully. It's hard to say what'll be going on then, but let's all hope that things are better.
December's a long way away, so when we get back from our road trip, like, we're still not sure what the rest of our year looks like.
Yeah, we're thinking about potentially later in the year going to maybe Australia or New Zealand if they're still doing well, things are kind of calming down. If not, we might go to Hawaii or do something like that.
Something else in the U.S.
Yeah.
We also haven't worked out west yet, or in Hawaii or Alaska, so that's the other thing is, like, if we're not able to do another trip for fun to replace our Latin America trip, we might just try to take an assignment in somewhere cool that we haven't been before. MJ says, I canceled 2 overseas trips this year. Depending on COVID, I might do a road trip to the Heartland for 10 days before Labor Day.
That'd be awesome.
That's awesome, MJ. Hey, Justin. Hey, Nick. Hey, George. George says, first day of my 22nd assignment tomorrow.
Oh man, congratulations.
Congrats, George. He says, probably my last assignment as a traveler. No, I'm getting burned out, especially after having COVID and having to quarantine 2 different times.
Yeah, that's tough.
I can understand that. And you've been traveling for a good amount of time, but we'll be sad if you stop.
Where would you want to settle down, George?
Yeah, let us know. Hi, Lauren. Hi, other Lauren. Hey, Jean. Hey, John. Thanks for joining, y'all. And then Melanie, in terms of car camping, has also suggested get a jet boil for cooking and a Yeti cooler.
Okay.
All right, well, we will definitely have to check into that. Yeah, we're going to have to, we only have a couple weeks now, like 3 weeks to get a van and outfit it and get it all ready to go. We've been doing some research. I mean, we've been thinking about this. Jerry's been talking about this for like 2 years. We just haven't actually bought one. So stay tuned for that. We will definitely update you guys about our minivan buying experience, and we're probably going to try to build like a platform in the back to elevate the bed to give us some more storage. Jared's also really tall. He's like 6'4", so that'll be interesting. We got to get a van that's big enough for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we have to build a platform, is because the sleeping space will be too big to really store much in there. So we need somewhere to put stuff underneath. Otherwise, I don't know how we would fit everything inside there.
Yeah. George says he might settle down in Virginia. What? That's our hometown, or
Nice.
our home state. Come visit. All right. Well, if anybody else, if y'all have comments, if you have questions, if you have suggestions, please let us know. Leave us a comment on the video, or you can send us a private message. We would love to hear from you. And that's just a little bit about what we're doing this year. Obviously, maybe the best thing would be just to stay home, but I think for us that's just not realistic right now. We still really have an itch to travel, so we're going to try our best to be health conscious and conscientious about the places that we're going.
I definitely think that there's ways you can do it that are still acceptable and safe, and I think that's probably how our trip will go. I think it'll be probably the best that we can do, and probably have about the same contact with other people that we have just in our everyday life right now. So I don't think it's anything crazy.
Yeah. And like when we found out, okay, for example, New Mexico, you have to like quarantine. And then we found out that some of the national parks, like you have to book in advance. And I'm like, gosh, what if we don't know which place you have to book in advance? And what if we get there and we didn't book and we can't go? And I was joking around that, like, even if we just get on the road and like we're not able to do anything, like what if we just drove around the US and like couldn't do anything? It would still probably be a really cool experience, because we'd be like, wow, look at that. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, even last year driving through Kansas and Missouri and some of the places that are not as exciting, it was a lot of fun for us. We'd never seen a lot of that stuff, and just being able to look at the different scenery, and that was awesome. So yeah, even if we can't do anything, we'll still enjoy the trip.
And I think even last resort, like say we plan to go to Michigan, and we found out that the ferry to get to the national park there, because it's an island in Michigan, is closed. We found that out in advance, but now we've been given so many other suggestions of like other hikes and things to do in Michigan that aren't necessarily labeled a national park, so they're not closed. So even if that happens, we'll still be able to find local things in the area. We'll just have to real quick get online and be like, hey guys, national park's closed, what should we do instead? And then I'm sure 5 or 10 of you will be like, go to this hike, or we'll use the All Trails app or something. So I'm sure we'll still have a good time. It's really up in the air, like what it's going to look like.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a couple other comments came in. Melanie says, I had no issues traveling while car camping out west. There were lots of open spaces. That's good to know. Thank you. MJ says, keep us up to date, especially when you're in Vegas. It would be cool to meet up with you guys. Absolutely. Yeah, that was the other thing. So even though like the TravCon got canceled, as of now, we're still planning on going to Vegas. We still had our
we still have our room booked. We have 4 nights booked there. So If that works out, that would be wonderful. Who knows though? I mean, I know cases are increasing in Vegas and they just rolled back their reopening. So hard to say what it will be like in a couple months, but yeah, hopefully we can meet up.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully as long as the hotel is open and we'll accept our reservation, we'll go there. I mean, what we'll be able to do, I don't know. Will we be just walking up and down the sidewalk? You know, is everything going to be closed? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find something to do.
Yeah.
And we do know several people that live in the Vegas area, so
Yep.
we'll find something to do. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Again, let us know if you have any suggestions or questions or comments or feedback.
Yep, and we're actually going to be out of town next weekend, so next week's video will be on Monday evening. And then we'll be doing on Wednesday this week our 101 series, like when you talked about in the beginning. So be sure to tune into those.
Yep, so Wednesday will be Travel Therapy Housing 101.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Take care.